The Flash movie. Do DC really have a gem on their hands, or is it more of a silly CGI fest? Let's talk about it.
I'm vengeance.
So I've come directly from seeing the Flash movie straight to record this review. I've just done my spoiler-free review. This is the one with the good stuff, the spoilers. Nothing held back. I'm going to talk about cameos. I'm going to talk about where the story could potentially be going. And yeah, if you don't want to see any spoilers, then definitely turn this off now. So, first of all, there's 4 things I want to talk about. If you've seen my other review, it's going to be very similar. I want to talk about story. I want to talk about vibe. I want to talk about performances. And finally, visuals. This time, though, I will be, of course, covering all the plot points, cameos, and fun stuff that you'll want to know about. So, let's start with story. This story is, of course, based on the Flashpoint comic book. It's a story where Barry Allen travels back in time to eventually try and prevent the traumatic experience of losing his mother and then his father being falsely accused of the murder. It's a pretty rough thing to go through. In the comic book storyline, he goes back in time, and that universe's Batman is, of course, Thomas Wayne, the father of Bruce Wayne. In this version, that universe's Batman that he travels to is, of course, Michael Keaton. Now, I don't have anything against that. I thought it worked really well, but I wanted to see Flashpoint Batman. Okay? I'm just getting that out of the way now. We do see another Batman in this movie, but we'll get to that later on in the video. For now, the story I felt was... Look, it's a very serious story. Like I said, Barry is dealing with trauma. That is a dark and serious thing to have to portray on film. They use comedy almost as a distraction to distract from that serious tone, and it makes we're not gone to vibe yet, but it kind of makes the tone and the vibe a little bit confused, I want to say. But overall, I think they adapted the Flashpoint story very, very well. I'm not sure how I feel about using the Man of Steel threat and the Man of Steel villains and storyline as the threat when traveling back into a different time and different universe. In this, I don't know if that really worked. Well, it did, but I don't know if it was necessary. It's not the choice I would have made. Look, in the Flashpoint comic book, when Barry travels back in time, the whole threat is like a war between the Amazonians and the Atlanteans. That's a big deal. Why not do something like that? Especially because there's reasons and cameos in this movie that kind of would have allowed it all to tie in. Yeah, I don't know. It feels like a wasted opportunity. We didn't need to see more General Zod, especially because did he really have much of a role in it? It was just a bit meh. The main story point, the main storyline is, of course, Barry traveling through time to try and make life better, I guess. I don't think he really thinks of the consequences, which is kind of annoying. Barry Allen's a very smart human, and surely he knows the consequences of messing with time. But it feels like he just goes, ooh, this is an idea. I could go back and save her. Yeah, right, and then just does it. You know, he spends like 2 seconds going, oh, okay, maybe Bruce Wayne's right, maybe I could destroy everything. And then he goes, but I could just do it this way, and then does it. I don't know how I'm feeling about that, Barry. I get that he does it in the comics, but it's so like emotionally charged and yeah. Storyline I'm on board with, but there's things I would have done differently. That's pretty much all I want to say about the story. I'm not going to do a full breakdown scene by scene and tell you everything that happens. This is just my thoughts, without holding back any spoilers. Okay, let's talk about vibe. So there's, like I said, a strong blend of comedy with all this seriousness. It does feel a little bit like they're trying to distract from the seriousness with the comedy, but the comedy works very, very well. There was no scenes where I was like, oh, yeah, haha, good job, funny. It was all legitimately quite funny. It was a bit silly at times, but still made me laugh. One scene I can talk about now because there's spoilers, is Batman and the Flash in the opening scene of the movie, sort of, are saving the day, they come into some trouble. Wonder Woman shows up. There's cameo number 1. Happy days. Diana's there. She catches them in the lasso of truth, pulls them up, and she looks at Batman and says, you know, you're welcome. And he says, my ego's too big to thank someone else. Something along those lines. And then he says, my alter ego has been developed through trauma. And he just starts blurting out all this stuff and then looks down and realizes it's because he has the lasso of truth. It was very, very funny. The first second or two, I was like, this just doesn't feel like Batman. And then I was like, oh, okay, okay, that makes sense. That's quite funny. I did enjoy that. And then Barry blurts out something about having never experienced sex, but is very aware of what it is. It's quite funny. And there's another scene later on where Barry 2 has his Flash suit on, and it's the Batman suit. and you see him pull the mask on, and the camera's from the side, and he turns to the camera, and it's on all wonky. It was very funny. There's little parts like that that really made me laugh, and they really take, I guess it's the comedic relief away from the seriousness. They're just treading a very thin line between trying to distract from the storyline and giving comedic relief. I think there is a difference in those two elements, but for me, it worked. I can see why others will think it's a bit silly, but for me, it worked fine. Let's talk about performances, and here I will cover cameos. We'll start with Ezra Miller. Now, let's keep our opinions of Ezra Miller as a person out of this. I'll try my best to do so, because my opinions on him as a person are very, very negative. That's all I'm saying on that. As an actor and as Barry Allen, it's really hard to criticize. Now, did Ezra Miller give a comic book perfect adaptation of Barry Allen? No, he didn't. Ezra Miller did not do a comic book Ezra Miller did not do a comic book Barry Allen. But he did do the Barry Allen that this story needed very, very well. Barry Allen's, I should say. He was genuinely funny. His comedic timing was great. When he needed to be emotional and the story required him to show that emotional side, to drive the story forward emotionally, I thought he was great. There's scenes towards the end of the movie where he goes back and realizes that he can't save his mother, and he's sort of saying goodbye to her, that I was like, oh, I might tear up here. Like this, it was really, really powerful and very emotional, very, very sad. Happy sad. And I think that does come down to his performance. So I can't say a lot negatives about his performance. There was a few scenes where I was barely laughing, and I think you're supposed to. Like, again, when he first loses his powers, I was going to say spoilers, but it doesn't matter. When he first loses his powers, he's like, okay, he tries to phase through a wall, can't do that, I'm going to run really fast. He does the pose, ready to sprint, and then it just cuts to him running around the room, but he's doing the movements as if it's like the effect, and it just looks hilarious. That really had me laughing. Can't really say too much more negative about him. A little bit over the top and silly at times, but again, worked well for the story. Ben Affleck. Now, Ben Affleck is debatably my favourite Batman of all time. Doesn't have the best movies, but I think has the most potential to be the greatest Batman portrayal we've ever had, for sure. He didn't get enough time in this. His Bruce Wayne was in it for a scene or two, and I think he was fine in that, although looked a lot skinnier than he did in previous movies. As Batman, one, I hated the costume. I've been trying not to say it. I've been trying to be like, yeah, it's okay. But no, it sucks. The costume is terrible. Who designed that? And who okayed that? I'm all with the grey and blue being brought into it, but that metal honeycomb crap all over it looks stupid. No. That's all I gotta say about that. But I'm also pretty confident that Ben Affleck didn't perform anything while wearing the batsuit. I'm pretty sure, if anything, they overlaid his chin and mouth onto the suit. I think it was all CGI, and bad CGI for that, but we'll get to that when we talk about visuals. But at the end of the day, Ben Affleck as Batman, it works for me. Others may not like it, but I was a fan. We of course have to talk about Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton as Batman. Guys, it's Michael Keaton as Batman. It's just so cool. It doesn't get much cooler. His parts as Bruce Wayne, when they first meet him, when he's got the long hair, the beard, it didn't feel like Bruce Wayne at all. I didn't like to see him kind of drunk and all over the place and wobbling about and kind of suck at fighting. It just, no, that's Batman. Like, come on, like, give him some respect. But as soon as he sort of took himself seriously again, he decided he was going to come out of retirement as Batman, then it started getting good. I liked his stuff as Bruce Wayne, and every time he had the cowl on, he was an absolute badass. It was just a pleasure to see. It also helps that I did watch Batman 89 last night before going to see this today, so I really felt like that proper nostalgia and excitement when he was on scene as Batman. Absolutely loved it. It is absolutely tragic to me that they killed him off on screen twice. Twice, guys? They killed Batman twice on screen. That was pretty tough. And we'll get to this at the end. It all kind of is made up, but we'll get to that. Stick around. But yeah, it was cool to see it. Can't fault the performance. Can only fault the writing of the introduction of Bruce. That's all I'll say. Are there any other characters that I want to talk about the performance of? Supergirl, no issues. Overly CGI'd at times, but performance, fine. Fine. That's pretty much all I want to cover in terms of performances. Now, visuals. Where to begin? There's no getting away from the fact that this is a superhero movie about someone that runs super duper fast. That's just how it is. It's gonna be a CGI fest, no matter what. Now, the running effects, every time there was a really cool speed scene or a slow-mo scene because it was in a Speed Force thing, it worked great. I was a big fan, but when it came to characters being digitally modeled and the actual turning back of time looked cool. As soon as people were in it, and if you've seen the movie, you'll know what I mean. It kind of goes into this, like, it's almost like a stadium of memories, is the best way to describe it. And the character models in that look like poorly untextured, unrendered video game models. Like really, really bad. I'll get to some cameos in a second, but one example would just be of his mother. When he's going back in time, he sees the memory of his mother, and it is just so bad. It looks like the modelers have gone, okay, skin. Skin is smooth, put skin on them. That's literally how it feels. Like, they've forgotten that there could be some slight hair or, like, you'll know what I mean, general human skin, face, texture. It was just completely absent, and it made for very strange and distracting viewing. It really took me out of the scenes that they were in. And even more so when it came to the cameos, which, 2 seconds, I just hated it. And it really, really brings the score of the film down for me because it was so distracting. Alright, that's all I want to say about the visuals. Cinematography, good job. Cameos. This is what you're all here for, really. Everybody wants to know what I thought about the cameos. So the cameos, in order, I think, we have Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman in the first few minutes of the film, first 20 minutes of the film. That was cool. She looked great. Hasn't aged a day. Not that it's been that long. And also has a really funny scene with Barry and Bruce. One of the most memorable scenes of the film, to me. Then, in the Time Force thing, we get an Adam West cameo for like 2 seconds. Which is funny because me and my buddy, as we were going there, were like, imagine there was an Adam West cameo. We had what's the first ever Superman, the black and white one, live action. That guy was in it. Then we had Christopher Reeves, which, although I kind of wanted to feel emotional because I'm a big Superman fan, the original Superman movie is like a movie I hold dear to my heart. I absolutely love it. And Christopher Reeves is Superman. I don't care what anyone says. He is Superman. So seeing that, I felt like I should have felt emotional, but because of the poor CGI model, it just took me out of it. It really did. Next after that, we had another Superman cameo, which was leaked a few weeks ago, and that was, of course, Nicolas Cage. He probably had the most extended of these cameos, maybe 20 to 30 seconds, like I-Beam in, I think it was Brainiac. Again, just looked like he was made out of clay, if I'm honest. At the same time, great to see it, cool to see it in the story. I'm glad it was included and involved, but looked awful. Okay, then the big one, which I thought was... My feelings still haven't quite settled on this one. At the end of the movie, Barry gets back to his timeline. He's fixed things, and it's done well. The way he fixes things is done very well. I was like, that's nice. That's a nice, satisfying ending. He's done it in a way where you can't see any repercussions from it, you know, and I was just like, yeah, nice. That was a good resolution of the story. But then he gets back, and he gets a call from Bruce, and he's like, oh, Bruce, I got so much to tell you, man. Like, I know you warned me about this, but I didn't change anything. It's all well and good. I'll let you know when I see you. And Bruce is like, well, I'm pulling up now. So the really fancy car pulls up, and there's all like paparazzi and stuff rushing the car, and they're not showing Bruce straight away. And I was like, oh, it's going to be Keaton in this universe. They've switched him out for Affleck. I want a drum roll for this. The paparazzi move, and George Clooney walks through the crowd. I'm not even kidding. An old grey George Clooney, looking pretty cool, I might add. Yeah, walks through, and Barry's like, "Who? You're not Batman?" And George is like, "Barry, what? Come on!" And then it ends. Yeah, that's where it ends. George Clooney is Batman. Now, if this movie is the reset for DC, then are they telling us that George Clooney is back as Batman, or is it just a funny little... I think it's just a funny little nod and cameo to Batman and Robin. But yeah, that was unexpected, I have to say. I think I liked it. I would have preferred Bale. I would have preferred Christian Bale in that role, but I think it's funnier as George Clooney. It's definitely funnier. The only other cameo then is the post-credit scene, which was highly disappointing. I was expecting something groundbreaking that was headed in towards the new chapter of DC movies, but it wasn't. It was just Barry holding up a drunk Aquaman, Jason Momoa, who kind of just collapses into a little puddle, and that's pretty much it. To be honest, that is the post-credit scene. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Story, vibe, performances, and visuals. I will score story, I'm going to go 8. I've already forgotten what I said in my last review. Vibe, 7. Performances, 9. Visuals, 5. Overall, I don't know what the average is. I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. That is my score. I very much enjoyed the storyline overall. Would have made some changes myself and made it more accurate to Flashpoint. But what they did well. Vibe, very funny, made me laugh. Very emotional when I was supposed to feel emotional, I think. Performances I thought were fantastic. Don't really have much negative to say about that, other than Ezra Miller himself. And finally, CGI sucked, but there were elements of it that were done well. It's just the CGI models of humans. Ugh, get rid of those. Anyway, guys, if you haven't seen this yet, go and check it out. If you have, what did you think of it? Let me know in the comments down below. I've been waiting a long time for this. I was not disappointed. I was not blown away. It's not a bad movie. It's probably the best DC movie so far, but it wasn't the masterpiece that the original hype promised it to be. That's all I'm going to say. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Guys, I'm sweating my ass off, so I'm getting out of here. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a great day. Don't forget to like and subscribe and return to the Batcave for more Bat content.
What are you? I'm Batman. I'm Batman. Fear. I'm vengeance.